Hello, Mr. Brown here, your science teacher. Join me today as we explore the science of evolution. Evolution, quite simply, is change over time. Here we see the evolution of a monster known as Godzilla as it appeared in the 1950s compared to today. Even mobile phones have evolved over time. Here's one of my favorites is the evolution of the bat symbol over time. And here is the evolution of Apple computers over time. But today, I want to know, where did all these living creatures come from? Hmm. Cultures around the world have attempted to answer this question for thousands of years. They have come up with creation myths. The Native Americans, the Chinese, the Europeans, all the way back to the ancient Egyptians, all have stories of where life on Earth came from. However, they always contain magic in their stories. And as a critical thinking young scientist, you and I both know magic's not real. Along comes the hero of our story, Charles Darwin. Charles Darwin was born on the same day as Abe Lincoln, to give you some idea of how old he is. But young Chuck's life changed when he received an invitation to sail around the world in 1831 on the HMS Beagle as the ship's scientist. So he jumped on board. Leaving England, they took 5 years to go around the world and all the way back to England. One of the stops Darwin made on his journey was the Galapagos Islands, located on the equator and in the same time zone as Wisconsin. What's interesting about the Galapagos, it is home to creatures that are found nowhere else on the planet, including the Galapagos tortoise and the Galapagos marine iguana. Darwin got to work, doing what scientists do, writing down his observation, collecting plants and animals and fossils and rocks, but he was particularly interested in these birds called finches. He noticed that on different islands, the finches, some had big, strong beaks, some had small beaks, some had long, pointy beaks, and Darwin wanted to know why. How did this come to be? He began thinking, you know, there might have been a population of finches that came out to the island many thousands of years ago, and then over time, these finches began changing, adapting, evolving to better suit the environment and go after different types of food. Darwin is onto something. He is developing what's called a scientific theory. Here you see a list of some of the big popular scientific theories of the world. It tries to answer the question, why and how? Darwin thinks about it, and he gets back to England and publishes a book. The Origin of Species comes out in 1859, where Darwin spells out his new theory that all of the creatures you see must have descended from creatures that lived in the past. Hold on a second here, Chuck. You're telling me that all the living things that I see in the world are all interconnected on the tree of life? Yeah, that's what the theory states. And what's more is if you follow this tree of life back billions of years, all life on Earth can be traced back to the original cell, the origin of life. This is some pretty deep, heavy stuff here. And not everyone was very happy about it. People have been trying to discredit Darwin's theories for over 150 years because it really conflicts with their creation myth. Well, National Geographic got involved. In '04, they asked, was Darwin wrong? And you flip open the magazine and it says, no, he wasn't wrong. The evidence for evolution is overwhelming. As my old friend Neil deGrasse Tyson likes to say, the good thing about science is that it's true, whether or not You believe in it. Today, evolution by natural selection is the principal foundation of all biological study. In fact, the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction demands that all students learn about the theory of evolution. Once you do learn about it and you understand it, it opens up a world of curiosity. As young scientists ask themselves, how did these tusks evolve on a walrus? How did this bird evolve that cool looking hat? And why did these beetles evolve a taste for dung? Hmm. So, how does this all work? That's what I'd like to know. All right, well, we can break it down into pieces. Here are 5 pieces to understand evolution: overproduction, variation, competition, natural selection, and speciation. The first concept, overproduction, means that living things will produce too many babies, more babies than the environment can handle. I'm sorry, babies, but there's just not enough food to go around for everyone. Not all these babies are the same. They will display variation, little differences in shape, size, color, mutation. It's time to eat. Everyone's hungry and there's just not enough to go around. This creates competition, or as Darwin called it, the struggle for existence. There are some winners, which means you get to have babies and reproduce, and there are some losers, which means you die. Look at this mouse here. That surely must be a loser. No, the mouse is a great winner in the struggle for existence. It's small, it's quick, it doesn't require much food, and it reproduces quickly, beautifully adapted, and is a winner in evolution. Natural selection now takes over, and nature will select those that are best adapted to the environment. In this situation, these beetles are under natural pressure from hungry crows, and they are selecting the green ones to eat. Over many generations, you can expect the number of green ones to go down and the number of orange ones to go up. This creates speciation. New species are developed. Okay, so how fast does evolution work? Can I evolve? No. Individuals don't evolve, only populations do. But how fast? Well, it depends. Some creatures have not evolved much in millions of years, like the crocodile and the velvet worm. Species like the cow shark and the horseshoe crab are almost exactly the same way as they were millions of years ago. However, other creatures are evolving very quickly. Bedbugs and mice both can evolve to become resistant to chemicals and poison. Sometimes the selective pressure comes from people. The, this plant right here is the ancestor of the cabbage, the Brussels sprout, kohlrabi, kale, broccoli, and cauliflower, all selected for by ancient farmers. The theory of evolution. What's that, young man? Are you looking for proof? Are you looking for evidence? That's what I like to see in a young scientist. That's called critical thinking. And you're in luck because evolution is supported by many lines of evidence: anatomical evidence, geological evidence, developmental evidence, molecular evidence, and my favorite, fossil evidence. Here we can see the fossil of an Archaeopteryx, showing the transition from dinosaur to bird. Here's a picture of me with the Archaeopteryx fossil. This is called Tiktaalik. This shows the transition from fish to amphibian. And here's a picture of my son and I with our old buddy Tiktaalik. Here is an Ambulocetus fossil, showing the transition from land mammal to whale. Whales have undergone 50 million years of evolution, and they slowly have lost their rear legs. I wonder if there's any evidence left over today. Well, in fact, you can see it for yourself at the Milwaukee Public Museum. They have a humpback whale skeleton mounted right on the ceiling, and They've included the tiny little hip bones left over from millions of years of evolution. The horse, if you would go back 50 million years, horses were only 38 centimeters tall. That's like this big. That would have been adorable. But natural selection has pressured the horse to become larger and larger and larger until you see it today. Australopithecus afarensis, an amazing fossil which shows the transition from ape to human. Here's a picture of my son and I with Lucy, the Australopithecus afarensis. What are these things? These are embryos, and they all look the same until they grow up, because they're going to grow up to become a fish, a salamander, a tortoise, a chicken, a rabbit, a cow, a pig, and a human? Yeah, that's right, a human. This is evidence called homologous structures. Even though humans, cats, whales, and bats all seem different, they all have the same exact bones in our arms. They might be different sizes, but the same bones are there. This is called molecular evidence, where you can see how closely related species are based on the number of amino acids. And the one that Darwin never knew about, but he'd be impressed by, is modern day DNA evidence, where we can actually see just how close species are related. That's a lot of evidence. Thank you for joining me today on the science of evolution. I want to thank the Carter family who inspired me to make this video. All right, I'll see you soon. Bye for now.